We're really, really pleased to be able to bring to you someone that I consider the best teacher, the best speaker on Advaita Vedanta in the Western world. And we've been trying to get him for 2 years, and he finally relented and said yes. And we're so very pleased to welcome Swami Sarvapriyananda to the festival for the very first time. I've been personally following him for a number of years. He puts all of his material on the web and in good quality, and it's just fantastic to hear. And I even had somebody in the audience who said that they were willing to go to New York to hear him, and then they suddenly found out that he was here to speak. So isn't that nice that you can find him on local doorstep? He came all the way from New York just to be with us, so it's absolutely fantastic, and would like to welcome somebody. And I've got to meet him over the last day or so, and he's as kind, as gentle as he comes out on his videos. So you get what you thought, you know, it was there. There's nothing else, and it's just wonderful. A gentle soul. I'd like you to welcome Swami Sarvapriyananda to the stage. Welcome, Swamiji. As is customary, and on a chilly day, I'd like to put a shawl to welcome you to the festival.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ram.
The talk, Swamiji will explain himself what he's going to be speaking about. We do have, and this is, we do have a surprise for you. We'll get a double dose this morning. So Swamiji is due to speak for about an hour and a half until about 11. Then we take a short break, and 11:30 he comes back on again for a second session for about an hour or so. So enjoy. Take a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back for the second session at about 11:30. Is that all right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you. All right, let's get comfortable. Om Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good morning, everybody. And a big thanks to Ram and Shonali for organizing this wonderful festival and for giving me this opportunity to come out here and be with all of you. All of you can hear me? People at the back also? Yeah, you're good? All right, the way we will do this is, since you are here, I presume that most of you are familiar with Advaita Vedanta at some level. Some of you may be new to it. So I'll give a talk on Advaita Vedanta for about 40 to 50 minutes, and then we'll use the rest of the time to interact. So those who have questions or comments to make, you can come and engage with me here, come up here and queue up, ask your questions, and I'll try to respond to that. So that's how it's going to go. Advaita Vedanta is an approach to spiritual life. It's non-dualism, and it's a very direct path. It comes from the ancient Indian texts, the Upanishads, the root texts of Advaita Vedanta are the Upanishads. When we were studying Advaita Vedanta as novices, by the way, I'm a monk of the Ramakrishna order. So I was trained in India, and right now I am posted at our center in New York. The Ramakrishna order was founded by Swami Vivekananda about 125 years ago. He was here. Swami Vivekananda was right here in Reading, in fact. We went yesterday to see the place where he was here teaching a group of Englishmen and Englishwomen about 120 years ago. So the textual foundation are the Upanishads, which go way back, maybe 5,000 years or more. Just today, when I was being driven here by the gentleman who picked me up, he was asking, well, Buddhism is the oldest religion. Is it older than Judaism? I said at approximately the same time period, 2,500 years ago. The Buddha lived over 2,500 years ago, but actually Hinduism goes even further back, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years. We really don't know. So the Upanishads are part of the Vedas, and in each of the Vedas you find a few of these Upanishads. They contain the highest spiritual and philosophical teachings of the Vedas. And when we started learning Advaita Vedanta as novices in our monastery, we had to memorize definitions. One of the first definitions I remember memorizing was, what is Vedanta? Vedanta nama Upanishad pramanam, which means Vedanta is verily the source of spiritual knowledge called the Upanishads. So Upanishads are foundational. Textually, they are the foundations of Advaita Vedanta. In fact, there are many schools of Vedanta. The others are dualistic schools, but Advaita is a non-dualistic school. The foundations are the Upanishads, but about 1400 years ago, there was this great teacher, Adi Shankaracharya, who wrote extensive commentaries on the Upanishads. So really systematized Advaita Vedanta. He's not the founder, as some would have him. He's actually, in the tradition, he's called the great commentator, Bhagavan Bhashyakara. And after Shankaracharya, there are many others who wrote a variety of texts. So some of the texts precede Shankaracharya, like the Upanishads do, and there are others like Yoga, Vasishta, and others. And some of the texts are from Shankara's time onwards. Now there's a point why I'm saying all this. I'm building up to it. Some of the texts are dialectical in nature. They're very intellectual, very subtle argumentation. Somebody said that they are brain fryers. I mean, if you want to fry your brain, you go into that. So they are highly philosophical. They are basically debates between the non-dualist Advaita school and other schools of Vedanta, or other schools of philosophy, including various Buddhist schools, other schools of Hindu philosophy like Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, and so on and so forth. Yoga, by the way, which is the main theme of the World Festival, is also a traditional school of Hindu philosophy, the school of Patanjali. Many of us here, we would have come across the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Now, so that's one kind of book. The Upanishads are foundational. There are other books called Prakaranas, which are introductory in nature. There are books like Advaita Siddhi or Khandana Khandakadya or Chitsukhi, which are dialectical in nature. A lot of argumentation, very intellectual. There are a few texts, one of which I will use for this session, the Ashtavakragita or Ashtavakra Samhita. This text is probably very ancient, probably before Shankaracharya's time. And in one sense, it is the highest text, the most radical, uncompromising non-dualism you find there. But it's an interesting kind of text. There is no development of thought. There is no attempt at argumentation. In fact, somebody writing on the Ashtavakra, one beautiful translation which was made recently is called The Heart of Awareness by Byrom, not the poet, Byrom, Thomas Byrom. He was a teacher of English literature, trained here in Oxford, but he taught in the United States. He made a very beautiful translation called The Heart of Awareness, and it has a very luminous introduction. And there he says that after all the teachers, all the religions and scriptures and the philosophers have had their say, and they fall silent, Ashtavakra begins. And the words are so luminous that they seem to appear on the page and disappear almost instantly. And there is no attempt at intellectual argumentation, no attempt to persuade, no development of thought, not even, I mean, it's in Sanskrit, but there is no complicated language there. The Sanskrit is very simple, very direct. So what is this book? The entire book has only one theme, the central message of Advaita Vedanta, that you are the absolute, that you are the ultimate reality, you are Brahman. In Sanskrit, Tattvamasi, that thou art. That thing is, or I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. So this thing is repeated, this message is repeated continuously throughout the book. Somebody called it a grand monotony. What's the purpose? The purpose is, once one gets some understanding of Advaita Vedanta, the practice would be to center oneself in the truth, in this intuitive realization of who am I or what am I, to stay there, to assimilate this, to sort of marinate in this understanding. And that the book does. If you read Ashtavakra slowly, quietly, and absorb what it is saying, it's like one continuous meditation. Vedantic meditation, non-dual meditation. Why I'm saying this is, when we listen, when we go through this talk, there are 3 stages to it. What I would expect us to do is, stage 1 is listening. Literally, just what is he saying, is what is the text saying, what is the sage, his name is Ashtavakra, the sage. What is the sage saying? So I should be able to say, after listening to it, so this was the message. A Tibetan teacher, and in a book, he says that when we started studying, our monastic guide said, when you listen, there are 3 things you should not listen like 3 things. Don't listen like an upside down pot. Don't listen like a leaky pot. Don't listen like a dirty pot. Upside down pot is self-explanatory. If you have an upside down pot and you try to pour water into it, it all flows up. So don't listen like that. Don't listen like we are leaving the tent. What did they say? It was some kind of philosophy. So what exactly was it? I'm not quite sure. No, that shouldn't happen. You know, in traditional Vedanta, they used to insist, the teachers would insist that we memorize the text. You don't have to memorize it, but one should at least be able to say in one's own words, this is what was said. So that's stage 1. What was said? What was taught? I should know in essence, this is what the message was. The second is the leaky pot. And we understand. You pour water into the leaky pot, you seem to have filled it up, but you come back 15 minutes later, it's all gone. So some of us, we listen like that. We hear it, and we know, and after that, it sort of it sort of flows out of us, and soon it's all gone. And we have to come to fill the pot up again. No, ability to retain what was taught, to dwell on it. And the third one is a dirty pot. A dirty pot is, if I pour water into a dirty pot, it gets mixed up with the dirt in the pot, and it's no use anymore. Similarly, when I come to a Vedanta session, I shouldn't come with a skeptical attitude that I know this guy's wrong. I'm going to prove him wrong. That's of no use. You see, Vedanta is based on understanding, and so one must ask questions. One must clarify. One must probe. There is no way other than understanding. In fact, one of the monks in the Himalayas, he used to say, there are only 2 ways. Either you understand it, know it, or you believe it. Carries more punch in Hindi. He said in Hindi, "Do hi raste hain, mano ya jano." Mano in Hindi means believe it, faith, have faith. Or jano, know it, realize it, see it for yourself, in which case it's not a question of faith. So in Advaita Vedanta is the path of understanding, actually grasping it, seeing for yourself. It's like if you go for a physics or maths class and the teacher tells us something and we say, and he says, "Did you get it? Do you understand it?" And we go, "Oh, sir, you are great. Whatever you say, it must be true. I believe you." The teacher is going to be very exasperated. Advaita Vedanta is like that. We must get it for ourselves. And in order to get it, we must ask questions. That's there. That's absolutely true. But the questions we ask are for understanding. The approach we take is, I'm sure there is something to it. I don't get it, and I need to get it, and that's why I'm asking questions. So we ask in that sense. So don't listen like a upside-down pot, leaky pot. And what was the third one? Oh, good. You're listening. You are listening. So don't listen like a dirty pot. So that's one. There is listening. The second thing we need to do is, all right, I heard it. This is what he said. Do I get it? Do I understand it? Do I have a grasp on? I say, yeah, I get what was trying to be conveyed there. So that's the second step. I know the teaching, and now I get it. And there's a third step. The third step is the most important. I know the teaching. I get it. Is it real? Is it a living truth for me? Because in Advaita Vedanta, the common problem is that after some time, it's not very difficult to get. You listen carefully, hear it a few times, you begin to get it. It seems it's very logical, very direct, and in a certain sense, very simple. Many people make it out to be very complicated. It's not. It's often the difficulty is that it's too simple. We are complicated. Advaita Vedanta is not. But then what happens, the complaint usually is, "Swami, I got what you said. I understand it intellectually," and you can almost hear the "but" coming up after that. But it's not real. But it's difficult to do it in real life, or it doesn't seem practical, or it's too difficult. It seems like a wonderful philosophy, and that's nice, but then how do I apply it in my life? So that third step is it real? So as we go through the talk, step one, all right, I just thought, we're going to talk about the timeless, but I have to keep watch on the time also. Yes. Yes. I do tend to go on. Okay. So, is it real for me? 3 steps. And they correspond to the traditional Advaita approach of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Shravana means listening, literally. Of course, practically it means a lot more than listening. It means a systematic study of this whole teaching. And then comes Manana. I have studied it, I know the texts, I know the teaching, now I need to understand it. I know what you said, Swami, but I have got many doubts. So we go into the second stage, which is Manana, which is thinking over it, asking questions, arguing it out within oneself, asking the teacher, discussing it with other students, thinking over it till I can say confidently, I've got it. That is Manana, second stage. And the third one, making it real, that is called Nididhyasana or Vedantic meditation. Now, why I'm saying all this is, this text which I'm going to use for this session corresponds to the third stage. Don't worry, we'll go through the first stage, the teaching itself, and a little bit of discussion about it. But mainly this is about the third stage of absorbing the teaching. So Ashtavakragita is like an ultimate kind of text, where it's all done, it's all taught, it's been argued out, threadbare. Now I know the teaching, I understand it, I'm convinced, now I'm making it real, staying with it. One reason I'm saying this is many of us have heard this. Almost nobody here is an absolute newcomer. So you might want to just listen And if you feel like turning inwards and seeing what is said within yourself and not paying all that much attention to the teaching, don't worry about it. When you open your eyes and pay attention again, you will find the same thing is being said. Ashtavakra says only the one thing all throughout. So if you feel sleepy, don't close your eyes. But if you genuinely feel inward, turning inwards, then do center yourself calmly within. So it's more a meditation than a lecture. That's what I wanted to say. Now, in Advaita, in spiritual life, the solution we get, the teaching we get, it depends on how you put the problem. As I said, jano ya mano, either you believe it or you know it. So there's one approach to spiritual life, which is the approach in most religions, is that you have to, it's called the approach of belief or faith. In fact, in the United States, here too, religions are nowadays called faiths. Advaita Vedanta is not faith. It's you'll see, it's just the opposite. It's a knowing rather than a believing. But that's one valid approach to spiritual life, the approach of believing. The problem is that we don't believe in God, that we don't worship God, we do not surrender to God, and the solution then will be faith in God, belief in God, prayer and worship and adoration and surrender to God. So this might be called the bhakti approach, the devotional approach. And it's very well known. Most religions, most theistic religions have this bhakti approach. The second one, another approach is the yoga approach, the meditation approach, what one might call the experience approach. This one says, no, it's not a question of believing in something. It's a question of actually experiencing it. Not Advaita Vedanta. I'm not talking, even this one is not Advaita Vedanta. The second one is you might call it the yoga approach, the Patanjali yoga approach, which says, Swami Vivekananda put it very directly. He said, if God exists, I must see God. If I have an immortal soul, I must feel it. So the yoga approach, the experience approach says that we must experience these truths for ourselves. By experience is meant some extraordinary mystical experiences which the yoga teachers say that you do these practices, this kind of meditation, this kind of visualization, and you will actually get these experiences. So it's an experiential approach. Many people think Advaita Vedanta is this. So even this is not Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta is what is called a knowledge approach. How do you distinguish it from the faith or the experience? It's not a question of believing, it's a question of knowing, of realizing. But it's also not a question of extraordinary mystical experiences. As we shall see, the problem with extraordinary mystical experiences is most of us do not have it. And it takes years and years of dedicated yogic practice to get some of these. Until that point, it still is a kind of faith. Maybe it's possible. I don't know. You all have got it. I don't know. I have to believe what you say. So that's one kind. But Advaita Vedanta, the knowledge approach says that not belief, not extraordinary mystical experiences, but ordinary experiences which we all share. For example, the experience of being awake, the experience of dreaming, the experience of deep sleep. That's enough. Everybody is awake or dreaming or sleeping, and we all have those experiences, and that's enough for Advaita Vedanta. We'll just take up those experiences, and then Advaita guides us step by step to our innermost reality. It's based on insight, an insight based on our common experiences. Just the experience of being embodied, just the experience of seer and seeing. I am the seer and this is the seen. Experiencer and experience, subject and object. Everybody has it. You don't have to wait for certain extraordinary experiences. You don't have to believe in a religion. So using experiences already available to us, Advaita takes us step by step to our innermost reality. So I've distinguished three approaches. The faith approach, the mystical experience approach, and the knowledge approach. And Advaita is the knowledge approach. another point. I still haven't started. I'm just creating the foundation. Another point. The spiritual journey in Advaita Vedanta, see, since Advaita Vedanta insists that we are that ultimate reality, it's called Brahman. Brahman, the word Brahman literally means the vast, the limitless. And we are that already. So the spiritual journey in Advaita Vedanta is not a journey in space. It's not that you have to go to spiritual journey. The moment we say spiritual journey in the Western countries, people whip out their passports and try to get a visa to India and get there. So it's not a journey in space. You don't have to go to Benares or Jerusalem or Mecca. No. Or even to heaven. In the United States, you drive by, you see these huge billboards. Heaven is a place. Call 1-8000 and so on and so forth. Which means that it's a place, not this place, it's that place. So you have to go from here to there, and that is a spiritual journey. No, Advaita Vedanta is not a journey in space, not from here to there or anywhere. It's right here. It's not a journey in time. Sometimes you see those big billboards, they say, after death you will meet God. Again, call 1-8000 and so on and so forth. Now, notice the word after. After is a time word. After death, which means not now, then. Not now, then. Advaita Vedanta is not a journey in time. It's right now. So what is it a journey? What kind of spiritual journey is Advaita Vedanta? If it's not going somewhere or waiting for something, religions say that you do wait, be a good person now and follow our teachings, and after death you will get your reward or something. But Advaita Vedanta says here and now. So what kind of a journey is it? See, if we are already that reality, if we always have been that reality, and that reality Brahman is everywhere, all the time, and we are it, then we must be that reality right now, right here. And yet we do not see it. Advaita Vedanta says we are Brahman, the ultimate reality, and everything that we experience is Brahman, and our reaction is, I don't see Brahman anywhere. You say everything is Brahman, I don't see Brahman anywhere. And you say that I am Brahman, I don't feel any Brahman-like. So Advaita Vedanta is a journey from ignorance to knowledge. It's a spiritual journey not from one place to another place. It's not a spiritual journey from one time to another time, waiting for something. Rather, here and now, from not knowing to knowing, but knowing, let me put it carefully, because the moment we say knowing, it sounds like something you would hear in a college or school. All right, I didn't know it, I read the book, I heard the talk, now I know it. Not that way. We know it that way, that's absolutely necessary, we must know the teaching, but then it's also, we must make it real, actually see for ourselves that it is so. So in that sense, that's why Vivekananda used the word realization. It's not just knowing, it's making it real. All right, that's our introduction. Now to Ashtavakra. Ashtavakra is the ultimate word in Advaita Vedanta. And when I start Ashtavakra, I quickly give a series of cautions. I don't think you need it, but still. One is that when you hear this, do not give up your regular spiritual practices. Some enthusiasts, they become, if you are not convinced, if one does not understand, you are safe. But the danger is that when one begins to understand, one becomes extraordinarily enthusiastic. Wow, why did I not know this earlier? I've been wasting my time all along. No, you have not. Nobody has been wasting the time all along. All the practice that we do, whether it's a meditation or prayer or yoga, all that should continue. Don't give them up. You give up your regular spiritual practices at your own peril. They are the foundation. So that must be there. Second, another side effect is sometimes people tend to look down at everything else. Oh, now I've got the top of the Everest now. Everything else is lower, inferior, you don't know the truth. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's in the monks in the Himalayas, they call it unripe Advaitins, immature non-dualists. In Hindi, एक कच्चे अद्वैती हैं. newcomers who are enthusiasts. Don't do that. So, all right. What does Ashtavakra have to say? You can pick up anything almost randomly from the book. They are all extremely high in tone and very powerful. The one I'm going to use now is from the 15th chapter of Ashtavakragita. Let's dive straight into it. I'll chant the verse, and then I'll talk about it, and we'll try to go deep into it. The verse goes like this. Ashtavakra says, "Na tvam deho na te deho, bhokta karta na va bhavan, chidruposi sada sakshi, nirapeksha sukham chara." You are not the body. I offer my pranams to the revered monks and nuns who have just come in. Thank you. We're talking about Ashtavakra. Natvam deha, you are not the body. Nate deho, the body is not yours. You are not a bhokta, a sufferer or enjoyer. You are not a karta, you are not an agent of action, a doer. What are we then? We are of the nature of pure consciousness, chidruposi. And sada sakshi, which means we are eternally, all the time, we are the witness. Nirapeksha sukham chara. Freely engage with life. Live your life freely, without any dependence. One more verse, and then we will enter into it. Ragadvesho mano dharmo namanaste kadachana. Nirvikara bodhatma. Nirvikalposi bodhatma, nirvikara sukham chara. Likes and dislikes, aversions and attractions, they are characteristics of the mind. In the mind, you are not even the mind, and even the mind is not yours. You are of the nature of, you are not a thought construct, you are not a vikalpa, nirvikalpa, you are not a thought construct. You are of the very nature of consciousness. Serenely, without any disturbance, serenely be engaged with life, live your life. So we'll use these two. These constitute the very foundation of Advaita Vedanta. So let's go into it. The first thing is a bombshell, that we are not the body. We are not the body. Natvam deha. What does it mean we are not the body? See, Advaita Vedanta, when it tells us that you are the absolute, you are existence, consciousness, bliss, Satchidananda, you are limitless consciousness, Chidruposi. The first problem is, when it says that, our first reaction is, that sounds cool, but I know what I am. I'm this. This is what I am. So we are very convinced that we are this physical body. And the first task, therefore, is to inquire into our unquestioned supposition that we are this body. Advaita Vedanta says we are deeply, deeply mistaken. And to convince us of this, there is this inquiry. Am I really the body? How am I not the body? Because the body seems to be quite obvious. It seems to be quite obvious that the body is here and that I am the body. So how am I not the body? Especially when this happens, you feel very, very body-like, you know. So what Advaita Vedanta does is, it uses what one might call our pointers. They sound like arguments, they sound like persuaders, and they are. They are intellectual arguments, and one must understand them, but they are more than intellectual arguments. They are actually pointers to our real nature, to something that we did not see. A pointer is a good word. It trying to show us something that we did not see till now. It's right here. Advaita seems to point to it and show us, look at this fact. So we use these pointers, there are many of them, we use these pointers to realize that we are not the body. One of those pointers is, one of the most powerful is called Drigdrishya. Drigdrishya means seer and seen, experiencer and experience, subject and object. The basic idea is that which you experience, you cannot be that. The seer and the seen cannot be the same thing. So for example, here I am, here is this cloth, and I'm seeing it. The seer, let's call that the eye is the seer. The eyes are seeing and the cloth is seen. I am seeing the cloth. The eyes are seeing. The eyes and the cloth are different. The simple fact, the eyes can see only that which is different from the eyes. In fact, the limit of the vision of the eyes are the eyes themselves. It's not out there. Something which is very far you can see with a telescope. Something which is very tiny one can see with a microscope. But the eyes themselves cannot see themselves. I know what some of you are thinking. I can see it in a mirror. You can see a reflection of the eyes in the mirror. The way the eyes see this directly, that way the eyes cannot see themselves directly. You can see a reflection. If you take a picture of yourself, you can see a selfie. But you cannot see, the eyes cannot see themselves directly. The seer and the seen are different. And I can see it in your expressions here. That's easy enough. Go on with it. Get on. Get a move on. But this is very simple. But next step, we go deeper. Consider the eyes themselves. The eyes themselves are also seen within quotes. Not actually seen, but experienced. My eyes are open. My eyes are closed. Eyes are itching, or I need glasses. All of these are known about the eyes by the mind. And the mind is the seer, and the eyes become the seen. And the world, of course, remains as the seen. Now, the mind itself, notice that the mind is different from the eyes. The mind and the eyes are different. That's why your ophthalmologist is different from your therapist. So, they're two different entities, and the mind is the knower and the eyes are the known. The knower and known are different. And you go even deeper. Can we know the mind? Yes, we do. I'm happy. I know that I'm happy. I'm miserable. I know that I'm miserable. I feel it. It would be ridiculous to say that there's a great deal of depression and misery, but I don't feel it. If I'm miserable, I feel it. That's why I say I'm miserable. So even the mind, we feel the mind. Very directly we experience the mind, the contents of the mind, our thoughts. There's a word for it, introspection. When we look inside, we see our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions. So the mind is also seen. And if the mind is seen, and if I'm experiencing the mind, then I must be the experiencer of the mind, different from the mind. And so this is a profound insight, that if I do experience the mind, then the mind is the seen, and I am this whatever I am the seer of the mind. As the seer of the mind, I must be different from the mind. And that different thing, that which I am different from the mind, that is called the Sakshi, the witness. So this is from a text called the Drigdrishya Viveka, the first verse. But what it shows is, the seer and the seen are different. And I am the experiencer of the body. I am the seer of the body. In fact, the body is an object of all the sense organs. You can see the body. If you're hungry, you can hear the body, the tummy rumble. You can touch, taste, smell the body. All 5 sense organs reveal the body. It's an object. It's something that is seen and experienced. And I am the conscious experiencer of the body. Therefore, I cannot be the body. Seer and seen are different, and I am the seer or the experiencer of the body, and therefore I cannot be the body. Same thing applies to the mind also. I am the seer or experiencer of the mind, and therefore I cannot be the mind. That's one pointer. Same three steps. What was the saying? What was the teaching? Step 1. Step 2, do I understand it? And step 3, is it a fact? Is it real for me? If you say, at each stage, I didn't hear the teaching, think about it again, what was just said. Second stage, I didn't understand it. Go back to what was said. Think about it, you'll get it. I understood it, but it's not real. Then the understanding is not very clear. Go back to the understanding, it'll become real. It is real right now. That I am not the body because I am the experiencer of the body. Seer. That's one pointer. There's another pointer. The body is not conscious, it's not consciousness, and I am consciousness. In Sanskrit, the words are very precise. Chit jada. Chit jada. That which experiences is consciousness, and that which is experienced is not consciousness. Now, this seems to be very similar to the first pointer. The first pointer was you are the seer and the body is the seen, and therefore you are not the body, because seer and seen cannot be the same thing. The second pointer seems to be like the first one, but it is a subtle but important difference. The seer, the experiencer, is always experienced as being conscious. And that which is seen, that which is experienced, is always experienced as something that we are conscious of. Now in Sanskrit, that which is conscious or consciousness is called chit, chaitanya, consciousness. And that which you are conscious of, the object of your consciousness, the object of our awareness, is called jada, insentient. Sentient and insentient. And the two cannot be the same. Sentient and insentient must be two different things. The sentient is the one who is aware, and the insentient is that which we are aware of. Now look at the body. Clearly you are aware of the body, and you are the one who is aware. We are aware of the body. So the body is insentient, jada, and we are chit. In fact, there's a psychologist in New York, a therapist, who uses Advaita Vedanta, has incorporated Vedanta into his therapy. He has this nice technique of showing that the body is insentient and we are sentient. What he does is, he says, look at your hand. In fact, you can try it right now. Look at your hand. And as we look at the hand, consider the experience we have. I am looking at the hand. And the experience is never the hand is looking at me. That would be scary and creepy. What's the point? Put the hand down. The same thing is true of the other hand. The same thing is true of my legs and my tummy and my chest and my head. In fact, the body is just a conglomeration of these parts like the hand, each of which I am conscious of, none of which are conscious of me. I'll repeat that. Simple fact, but we never think about it. We are conscious of the hand is not conscious of me. And the rest of the body is just like this hand, which we are conscious of or we can pay attention to, and it does not know me. And this simple fact shows I am consciousness or awareness of which body is an object. Body is not aware of me, I am aware of the body. So, the one which is aware and that which it is aware of, the two cannot be the same. They clearly are two different entities. If I am aware of the body, then the body is different from me. I am awareness and the body is that which I am aware of. Just as a side issue, this question might come up, but the body feels conscious. It feels aware. So Vedanta says, what happens is, in a living body, consciousness is reflected in the mind, what is called the subtle body, and that seems to be conscious. The mind seems to be conscious. It's because it borrows consciousness from you the awareness or consciousness. And once the mind is lit up, the body which is connected to the mind, the body also feels conscious. The Upanishads say, nakagrat, up to the tip of my nails, I feel I exist. Because in the living body, consciousness is reflected, it spreads throughout the mind and body. So we feel the body is conscious, but it's entirely borrowed consciousness, from you the consciousness. So anyway, I the consciousness and the body which is an object of consciousness cannot be the same. Chit Jada. That's the second pointer. The third pointer is, one more pointer, let's do that. Savikara Nirvikara. The body undergoes changes. The body undergoes continuous changes. Yesterday, Ram was telling us, in the yoga festival, we have an age range from 90 to 2 weeks. The oldest member is more than 90, and the youngest participant is barely 2 weeks old. Now imagine, from babyhood to childhood to youth, middle age, and old age, the body changes so much. And yet we have the awareness that I was that child. Before that, I was in that baby body. I was in the teenage body and the middle-aged body. And now I am in this aging body. I am the same. I the same and the rapidly changing body. How can the unchanging and the changing be the same thing? So I, the unchanging indweller of this body, the one who experiences the body from within right now, and the changing body, I cannot be the same. The body and the one in the body, the changing and the unchanging, cannot be the same. And therefore, I cannot be the body. These 3 pointers are enough. There are others also. So what are these 3 pointers very quickly? Seer and seen. Drig Drishya. I am the experiencer, body is experienced, and therefore I cannot be the body. I am awareness, and the body is something that I am aware of. Sentient, insentient, chit jada. I cannot be the body. They cannot be the same thing. And I, the unchanging, in a changing body, the unchanging and the changing cannot be the same thing. Therefore, I am not the body. Nate deha, you are not the body. And the same thing applies to the mind also. Same thing. You see, the thoughts in the mind are experienced, and I am the experiencer. Seer and seen, they cannot be the same thing. I am the witness of the mind. I, awareness, am the witness of my own mind. The second pointer, consciousness. This is very interesting. It's a bombshell, because we think if something is conscious, it must be the mind, and the mind feels conscious. In fact, in consciousness studies, if you ask what do they study, give us some samples, they will say perception, thought, memory, intellect, emotions, all related to the mind. And they'll say that is consciousness. But Advaita Vedanta makes a clear distinction between mind and consciousness. Because the thoughts of the mind, they are not conscious. You are conscious of them. And a very simple experiment reveals this. If you think a thought in the mind, a thought, any thought, I mean anything, A, B, C, D, or 2 plus 2 is 4, just try it right now. I'm thinking right now deliberately, 2 plus 2 is 4. And hold that thought. And now notice, are you conscious of 2 plus 2, 4, or is 2 plus 2, 4 conscious of you? Do you say, hey, there is 2 plus 2, 4? Or does 2 plus 2, 4 say, hello, how are you these days? You haven't taught me for a long time. You're laughing. It's a ridiculous statement. Obviously, the thought is not conscious. We are conscious of the thought. The thought is like mental talk, which we are conscious of. It's not at all a conscious entity. Even thoughts are not conscious, though they feel conscious. And therefore, the conscious and the unconscious cannot be the same thing. Chit jara. You are not even the mind. There is the mind which is experienced, but you are not it. And the last one, changing and unchanging. If I ask you, does the mind change? You'll say, oh boy, does it change? From the morning till now, how many thoughts have come? You know? Sleepy, and then alert, bored, and then excited, relaxed, and then irritated. So many thoughts in the course of a few hours since waking up in this morning. So the mind changes, thousands of thoughts coming and going. And you experience each one of them. You are not them. Because if you were part of the mind, if you were connected to the thoughts, if you are part of the thoughts, when a thought comes and goes, you would have gone with it. But you are there. When the relaxed thought came, you were there. You felt, I'm relaxed. When the flash of irritation came, you felt, I'm irritated. I as is constant. The relaxed, the irritated, the happy, the annoyed, the same I continues. The annoyance and the happiness and the irritation and the relaxation, they come and go. So, changing. Mind is changing. I am unchanging. I, the awareness of the mind, am unchanging, and the mind is a series of changes. Therefore, I cannot be the mind. Next it says, Nate deha. The body is not yours. See, most of us, if you're listening to this, you would have felt, yeah, I sort of get it, and I never really thought I am literally the body. Most grown-up people, sensitive people, educated people, we feel that we are embodied. Yeah, here is the body, and clearly it has something to do with me, whatever I am, and I feel I am in the body. But we definitely do feel that it's our body, it's my body. And Ashtavakra goes, he knows what we are thinking, and so he says, the body is not yours, nate deha, not your body. And this is a shocker. But really, if you think about it, think about yourself as awareness, and I'm aware of a body. So body is something in my awareness, just as all these entities are in my awareness, the body is also in my awareness. How do I say that it's my body, I own it? One teacher was joking, humorously, he was saying that, suppose you say, this is my body. Do you have the papers to prove it? You're driving along and a policeman stops you. Show me your papers. Not the car, sir. Show me the papers to the body. How do I know that's your body? No. You can't prove that you own the body. Did we make the body? Did even our parents make the body? No, nature did most of the work. We wouldn't know where to start. It's such a complex entity. Nature does most of the work. I can't prove that I own it. I didn't make it. Do you own the materials out of which the body is made? That's one other way of ownership, that I own the materials. No. The sky and the water and the fire and the air, I don't know, and the wind, do I own those materials? No. There's this joke, old joke of a scientist who goes to the teacher, a preacher, and says, Father, we have learned how to synthesize life in the laboratory. We can make life. And the preacher said, really, show me. And they go to the laboratory, and the scientist says, you take a little bit of earth first. And the preacher says, get your own earth. Because the materials are also, they don't belong to you, they belong to God. You don't own the materials out of which the body is made. Does the body obey you? Do you run the body? No. We may think so. Yes, the body obeys me, that's why it's my body. When I want, I can raise my hand. I want to raise my hand, here I'm doing it. One little stroke, left side of the brain, and the right hand I can't. As much as I want to lift it, I can't lift it. I'm able to control the body because the body allows me to control it. Nature allows me to control it. There may come a time when it does not allow me to control it. Then what do? The body does not obey us. We do not run the body. And thank God. If suddenly nature said, all right, it's yours, you take the wheel. The endocrine system, the respiratory system, the cardiac system, the nervous system, digestive system, millions of activities going on. Do it. We wouldn't last 30 seconds. ICU, intensive care unit. We have no idea how to run this body. We don't own it. Did somebody give it to you in a gift? Amazon gift card, one body? No. We don't own it. We don't own the materials. We can't run it. We can't make it. Nobody gave it to us. How do you say it's your body? It's not our body. It belongs to nature. Nate dehaha. We are the awareness in which a body and a mind appear and function and appear to help us, cooperate with us. But we are not the body. We are not even the mind. We are unlimited awareness in which the body is experienced, in which the mind is experienced. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, they come up, they shine in our awareness, and they disappear. We are that one awareness, which is the seer, not the seen, which is consciousness, not an object of consciousness, which is unchanging. Why do I say unchanging? Can't the consciousness change? There's a subtle bit of reasoning here. If consciousness changes, and you are aware of it, that consciousness changed, then it is an object. That which changes is an object to consciousness. See, the moment I say I am aware of something, literally it means it's an object to consciousness. You are conscious of it. Then, which you are conscious of, it must be different from consciousness. Are you following? If it's different from consciousness, then the change was not in consciousness. You see, note that every change is possible in the body, in the world outside, in the weather especially. I was told by an elderly gentleman in India who remembered the British rule, you know. He said that the British people, when it rained a lot in India, they would look at each other meaningfully and say, home weather. Home weather. There's change possible in the world outside, which you are aware of. There's change possible in the body. There's change possible in the mind. You're aware of it. But there is literally, logically, change is not possible in the consciousness which is aware of all change. So the unchanging consciousness, which is always the experiencer, never the experienced, that is what we are. And Ashtavakra says, Chidruposi, you are of the nature of consciousness, pure consciousness. Sada Sakshi, ever the witness, never the witnessed. Why Sada Sakshi, ever the witness? So these are clues, these are pointers to our real nature. When we talk like this, there's a possibility of making, immediately there's a possibility of making an error. The error is this. We can practice witnessing. We can actually practice witnessing. But that practiced witness is a mental function, is a thought in the mind. It's not the witness which Ashtavakra is thinking about. One of these sadhus was teaching this in the Himalayas, monks. After teaching to this point, he said, there's a gathering of monks. He said, so Mahatmas, monks, you feel you are the Sakshi, the witness? And the monks nodded, yes. And he said, you're going to fall into an especially deep pit. In Hindi, he said, Bahut bade gadde mein giroge. That is a witness. It's a practice. It's a kind of a meditative practice in the mind. That's not the real witness. That kind of witness is when we say, oh, when we listened to it, when we were doing yoga, we felt like the witness. But when I'm out there, it's all gone. I can't be the witness. I'm engaged in life. When life puts a lot of pressure on me, the witness is gone. No, no, no. The witness which Ashtavakra is speaking about does not come and go. Consciousness is ever the witness. It is the witness of the mind which thinks of itself as the witness. It is the witness of the mind which thought, I was the witness, now I can't be the witness anymore. It's still the witness. You are the witness of that mind. Tell me, when you felt that I am the witness, it's all very nice, did you know that? Yes. You are the witness of the witnessing mind. When you feel that, oh, it's all gone, now I'm too busy with the world, do you know that? Yes. That knower is the continuous witness, not the mind itself. The mind can be a practiced witness. Mindfulness, well, I don't know how big it is. It's very big in America. Mindfulness. And the whole point is to be a witness to, for example, the breath. Breathing in, watch it. Breathing out, watch it. So that's a kind of practiced witness. And that's an activity of the mind, very good as an exercise, which is very good for the mind, very calming. But that's not what Ashtavakra is talking about. What he's talking about is, he's pointing out to our real nature as the witness, even if you didn't attend a single Vedanta talk. For somebody who's not at all interested in philosophy or spirituality, is still the witness. All that Vedanta does is points it out to us that you are actually the witness. Helplessly so, choicelessly so. In fact, Jiddu Krishnamurti, he loved this phrase, choiceless awareness is a very good phrase. We are choicelessly Brahman. We are choicelessly the Atman, pure consciousness. The only hassle is we don't know it, or we don't see it. So Ashtavakra says, Bodhatma, your very nature is consciousness. Nirvikalposi, you are not a thought construct. Vikalpa is a thought construct. Beyond all thought constructs, you are the witness of all thought constructs. You are not a person. You are the impersonal awareness which is aware of the person. I like this saying very much. The person will never become free, but you will become free of the person. Again, careful. Free of the person doesn't mean the person will disappear. It will continue to be there. But you know deep inside, I am not the person. When I function in the world, I function through a personality. I was happy to discover that the word personality comes from mask. Persona, the word persona is a Greek word. It seems in ancient Greece they would perform these plays, and they would go out there in the amphitheater with a big mask which had a hole in it through which they would shout out their lines. So sona means sound, persona that through which sound comes. It means a mask. So we make such a big thing about he has a good personality, she has a good personality, personality development, mask development. You are beyond the personality. And Advaita just points that out to us. Okay. What have we got so far? We are the witness consciousness right now, right here. Not the body, not the mind. The body still is there, the mind still is there, but it's not you. You're not stuck to it. It does not define you, it does not define us, it does not limit us. After this, what happens? If I'm not the body, can I walk or talk, or can I eat some of the delicious food? You can do everything that you are doing, and you can do it much more happily. Ashtavakra says the result of all of this is not that you will become a disembodied spirit or something like that. Sukham chara. Chara literally means be engaged with the world. Seeing, smelling, tasting, touching. This is charati, moving around in the world. Sukham, happily. Before this, tension, unhappiness. Why? Body is giving troubles. Mind is depressed. You're not the body. You're not even the mind. And this, actually, when we realize our nature as the witness of the body-mind, the body-mind becomes much happier. We meddle too much with the mind. We put too much unhealthy demands on the mind. That's why the mind is so unhappy. Witness of the mind, using the body and mind, be engaged in life. Sukham chara, happily move around in life. Do whatever you are doing, freed of tension and suffering. What tension is there for you? You cannot die. You cannot die. I'll make one promise, a rather morbid one. One day, all of us here, the body will go, what is called death. The body will go. At that point, you can look back and say, aha, the Swami was right, I'm still here. We cannot die. What is there to be afraid of? We are not afraid of death. The most serious, Jung said, Carl Jung, the psychoanalyst, he said, most psychosomatic diseases, psychological illnesses that I have come across are because of the repressed fear of death. You are beyond it. Death cannot touch you. The miseries of the mind cannot touch you. The moment you realize the miseries of the mind are not my miseries, the mind stops being miserable. It feels that I can't trap this fellow. So no use being miserable anyway. So this is where we are. I think we'll take a little, before we go ahead, if you have questions, comments, would you like to engage with what we have done so far? So would somebody like to ask something? You can come up here and, yes, do come here. Tell us your name and ask the question.
My name's Tim.
Tim.
I've got
Tim.
lots of questions.
Yes.
One of them is I studied Buddhism for a number of years.
Yes.
And I wondered whether you could briefly describe differences between the non-duality of Advaita Vedanta and the non-duality of Buddhism.
Yes. Okay, well, it's a very good question to start with. And a full answer would take a whole talk. All right, Tim, do sit. You can come back again with other questions. Yeah, I can see that you have a lot of good questions. Let's take this question first. You know, the reason this comes up, Buddhism, is Advaita Vedanta seems to say that, you know, the language used in Advaita Vedanta, you are the unchanging self. The Buddhist says just the opposite. There is nothing unchanging. Everything is change. The Buddha said, transient, everything is transient. Impermanent, everything is impermanent. Anityam, sarvam anityam. Not only impermanent, but also momentary. Things can be impermanent and they can last for 100 years and then go. But Buddha said, no. Moment to moment. Kshanikam, sarvam kshanikam. Moment to moment, everything is changing. And therefore, shunyam, sarvam shunyam. Emptiness, all is emptiness. And because of impermanence, because of this momentariness, because of emptiness, dukkham, sarvam dukkham. Sorrow, indeed, all is sorrow. Now, in contrast to this, Advaita Vedanta seems to say that the self is not momentary, it's not impermanent. The real self is permanent, the Atman. So this is one fundamental difference. On the face of it, they seem to be just opposites. Advaita Vedanta talks about, in common with the Hindu philosophies, talks about the reality of the Atman, the self theory. And the word used in Buddhism is anatman, or in Pali anatta, or in Sanskrit anatman, no self theory. So are they not absolutely opposite? If you compare, now one must realize that in Buddhism there is a range of schools. There are various schools, the Sautrantika, the Vaibhashika, the Vijnanavada, the Shunyavada. In fact, in Tibetan Buddhism, are you asking from a particular Buddhistic angle, the Tibetan Buddhist angle? All right. So, for example, the Tibetan Buddhism is philosophically a synthesis of Vijnanavada and Shunyavada. So there are variations across the Theravada schools, across the Mahayana schools, across the Vajrayana, the Tibetan Buddhist schools. It's interesting that when you come to Advaita Vedanta, what we are talking about, and one of the final developments of Buddhist philosophy, the Shunyavada of Nagarjuna, the language becomes extraordinarily similar. If you go to ancient Indian philosophy, you will find the Hindus and the Buddhists debated this for nearly 1,000 years. And it led to an extraordinary development of philosophy in India, on the Buddhist side, on the Hindu side. But I do believe that when you come to something like the Shunyavada, the Madhyamaka Shunyavada of Nagarjuna, and the emptiness school of Nagarjuna, and the Advaita Vedanta, they seem to be very different. And if you go to the original texts, or the dialectical texts, they seem to be attacking each other also. But there is enough reason to believe that they are different linguistic approximations of the same truth. how can, if you ask, it's nice to say that they're the two aspects of the same truth or two expressions of the same truth, but one might ask, how can you say no self and self are the same truth? But if one looks a little deeply, what does the Buddhist mean by no self? And what does the Vedantin mean by the self? They're not talking about the same thing. When the Buddhist says the body is not the self, there is no permanent self to be found in the body, the Advaitin agrees, you are not the body. The Advaitin does not say that the body is a permanent self. No, no, no. When the Buddhist says that mind and thoughts and feelings, sensations, they talk about 5 pillars, panchaskandha of existence, none of which, nowhere do you find a permanent self. The Advaitin would agree completely. What we just did, you are not the body, you are not the mind. All of it, the 5 skandhas of Buddhism are covered in these body-mind complex of Advaita. And here, they both agree. Beyond the body-mind complex, underlying the body-mind complex, as the reality of this body-mind complex, is what Advaita Vedanta calls Brahman. Brahman literally does not mean a thing. It literally means the limitless, the vast. What Advaita uses a positive term to describe, existence, consciousness, bliss. Buddhism talks in negative terms. I remember I had this conversation with a group of lamas, Tibetan Buddhists. We had met for an interfaith conference organized by the Sikhs in India several years ago in a place called Nanded. And at breakfast table, the lamas sat around. I was there. And their senior lama, who could not speak any Indian language, Tibetan, but one of the lamas knew Hindi. So he sort of translated in broken Hindi and English so we could converse. And so that their main teacher, the Tibetan Lama, asked me, well, tell us about the Atman. I thought, uh-oh, here we go. 1,000-year debate reawakened. And so whatever I said about the Atman, Satchidananda, the existence, consciousness, bliss, they immediately went, no, 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 no. Upanishads, the Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Brahman is infinite existence and consciousness. No, 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 no. Then I thought, oh, I know the way to do this. I said, Atman is Esha Neti Neti Atma. It is not this, not this. Whatever you can describe as this, body, mind, what we just did, it is not the self. So the self does not exist then, not that either. Whatever objective you find is not the self. And then you think that there is no such self. Not that either. So not this, not this. They went into a huddle, like a football team, There were about 6 or 7 of them. They talked fiercely among each other. Then they turned around and they were all smiles. And the interpreter said, our teacher says you can be a good Buddhist. Come over to our side. But no, this is directly from the Upanishads. Esha Neti Neti Atma. Swami Vivekananda, in his lectures on practical Vedanta, in the 4th lecture, he says, consider the classic rope snake example. Advaita Vedanta does not say that there is, the example of the rope which was mistaken for a snake. It does not say that there is a snake and underneath that there is a reality called a rope. It's not that there are 2 things. There is one thing only, the rope, which is mistaken as the snake. There is only one reality, Brahman, which is mistaken as the world, as this body-mind self, and as the god of religion, Jiva Jagatishvara. All of them are appearances of one underlying reality. This is what Advaita Vedanta states. Now, Buddhism, what it does is, it says the snake is false. And about the rope, I will not say anything. And there's a reason. There's actually a reason. Buddha was asked, I think the great silence of the Buddha. 10 minutes, yes. The great silence of the Buddha. He was asked, actually, that the other teachers talk about that is there a self? Buddha remained silent. So there is no such self. The Buddha remained silent. And after death, will the Buddha be there? He remained silent. So the Buddha will not be there. Remain silent. the great silence of the Buddha on these questions. Why? It's not that he did not know. He knew. He was a master of all the existing philosophies at that time. The silence is the correct answer, because whatever you try to say about it will be wrong. So the truth, the ultimate, the absolute Brahman is beyond language. When you try to bring it into language, when you try to give it expression, you will give it a variety of expressions, each of which is an approximation, but none of which can claim to be the exact representation of the reality. It is said to be beyond language, avang manasa gochara. The Hindu dualists, whom the Buddhists actually attacked, the Naiyayikas, for example, the Nyaya school, the Buddhists were attacking them. Advaita was not really present on the scene when the debate was going on. Not so much, until much later. The Naiyayikas seem to say, the Nyaya school, seem to say there is a body, there is a mind, and there is an Atma, a separate soul. And the Buddhists attacked that. They said, yeah, there's a body, it's a mass of changes. There is a mind, there's a mass of changes. And where is this unchanging, precious Atma of yours? Where is it? Apart from the body and mind, you can't show any self. And the body and mind, there is no permanent self in the body and mind. And the Nyaya school, they fought a nearly 1,000-year battle with the Buddhists, trying to prove two things: that there is an immortal soul, an Atma, and the existence of God, both of which Buddhism seemed to deny. So they fought with each other. And it led to tremendous philosophical texts. But from an Advaitic perspective, it's not such a problem, because the not self of the Buddhists is not the Atma of the Advaitins. In fact, the later developments in Buddhism, if you see Tibetan Buddhism or some schools of Mahayana Buddhism, even the language, clear light of the void. And they are talking about a consciousness beyond the awareness of the body-mind. Often almost in positive language, almost. But they're careful not to use the positivistic language of the Hindus. But they almost seem to. There are a number of modern scholars who say that the Brahman of the Advaitins and what is described as Shunyam by the Madhyamakas, they are the same. I asked a question to the Sakya Trizin. You know, the Tibetan Buddhists have 4 schools: the Kagyupa, the Sakyapa, the Nyingmapa, and the Gelugpa, the 4 schools. So I met the head of the Sakyapa, the Sakya Trizin, who was the head, who has passed away now, and there's a new head. And I asked him this question: what is the relationship between the Tibetan Buddhist philosophy and Advaita Vedanta? I didn't get an answer, because he just smiled at me and he said, big question, no time. So I'll leave it at that. I mean, to put it briefly, that from an Advaitic perspective, what Tibetan Buddhism, or say some of the finest, the ultimate developments in Buddhist philosophy is saying, they are more or less the same thing. They are almost like mirror images. They're saying the same. Nagarjuna, in the Mula Madhyamaka Karika, more than nearly 2,000 years ago, he uses the words Shantam, Shivam, Prapanchopashamam, peace itself, auspiciousness itself, the silence of the universe, a very beautiful phrase, the silence of the universe, which are exactly the words used in the Mandukya Upanishad, the 7th mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad. Upanishad and the Buddhist philosopher using the same words to describe the ultimate, they will not even say reality, the ultimate. The Buddha himself, there's a less quoted, but an authentic text from the original teachings of the Buddha, which he says, "O bhikshus, O monks, there is in the mixed there is an unmixed, in the aggregated there is an unaggregated, in the compounded there is an uncompounded. Without the unaggregated, uncompounded, unmixed, there would be no escape from the mixed and the compounded and the aggregated." What is that unmixed, uncompounded, unaggregated? He does not say. he wants to keep silent on that. Sri Ramakrishna, who was Swami Vivekananda's teacher, once in his presence, somebody said, well, the Buddha was an atheist. And he immediately said, why should you say that? Why do you say the Buddha is an atheist? He did not, or he could not express what he had realized. Due to not any fault of his. You cannot actually accurately express it. In fact, the most accurate answer to these questions is silence. So from that perspective, I would say what Advaita Vedanta is pointing towards, that at least Madhyamaka Buddhism of Nagarjuna is pointing towards the same thing. One more question. Let me do a rapid fire thing. Please come.
Have you heard about Yoga Swami of Sri Lanka?
I've heard, yes.
Yes, his center is in Hawaii, Subramanian Swami
Yes.
at the center. And he says the same thing in simple Tamil composition. Tanadam, tamadam, tanadam. That means you are that, you are that, you are that. Whatever you are telling, he has talked in very simple terms for simple people to understand.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's true.
Yeah.
You are that Tattvamasi. The central teaching of Advaita Vedanta is very simple. That thou art. But Tattvamasi, for example, in Chandogya Upanishad. But then the whole thing comes into what do you mean that? What is that and what is thou? And how are they the same thing? And how does it solve my problem? So that's what, yes, come.
I had a question which is, what does Advaita Vedanta...
Please tell us your name and then...
Sorry, I am Shoresh.
Yes.
What does Advaita Vedanta have to say about ethics?
About ethics?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Swami Vivekananda actually put it very powerfully. He said Advaita Vedanta is the foundation of ethics. He asked the question, why should I do good to others? Why should I do good to others? If it suits me to cut the throat of my neighbor, why should I not? As long as I don't get caught, as long as I gain something out of it. If you ask a philosophical question, what is the foundation of ethics? And Swami Vivekananda says, the foundation can be given only by Advaita, he says. Because Advaita speaks about oneness. By hurting the other, I am hurting myself. We are one, there's one underlying reality which expresses as Saurish and Tim and Sarvapriyananda and everybody else. So the moment we hurt others, physically, verbally, even think badly about others, we are living a lie, which is that we are different. I would never think of harming myself. I'd only think of doing good to myself. Expand the sense of self to include everybody. All of it is one reality, and that gives the foundation for ethics. There's a very beautiful article by a very senior monk of our order, Swami Bhajanananda, Swami Vivekananda's Ontological Ethics, how Vivekananda used Advaita Vedanta to give a foundation for ethics. You see, this is a very big subject. Why should one be ethical? Ethics itself is a branch of philosophy. So there are what is called, there's a utilitarian approach to ethics. That if one is ethical, it increases one's happiness. Utilitarian approach. The problem is, happiness, it cannot always be a measure for ethics. What increases my happiness may not increase other people's happiness. I can be, maybe being unethical can increase my happiness and make a lot of other people unhappy. There is something called deontological ethics. Deontology is a big word, but it means something very simple. Don't calculate happiness or misery. Don't calculate utility. Just go on duty. For example, religion or law. So why should I tell the truth? Because my book tells me to tell the truth. Why should I not hurt others? Because my religion tells me not to hurt others. The problem with that is, suppose someone doesn't believe in religion or believes in quite a different other religion, then how can that, your book, your ethics, be a foundation for that person's ethics? And in modern this is the age and the country of Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, and in America we have Sam Harris. So all this is under attack. When religion itself is under attack, how can a particular religious dogma serve as a foundation for ethics? It cannot. So what is the foundation for ethics? How would you philosophically justify ethics? Swami Vivekananda used Advaita, the Advaita idea of oneness. Because we are one reality, then morality and ethics, including environmental ethics, all of it immediately follows, logically follows. By hurting the other, by harming the environment, we are actually harming ourselves. We are that reality. An enlightened view of the self is the self of everything. So it's a very interesting article. If you want, I can share it with you later. I can give you. It's a 20-page. He takes a wonderful survey of the field of ethics as it exists now. Teleological theories, deontological theories, utilitarianism, all of that. And certain theories of ethics from Indian philosophy, the Nyaya theory, and so on, and shows their defects and shows how Advaita can give a firm foundation to ethics. Are we out of time? Should we? I have a fairly captive audience here. You can't go anywhere.